Hello and welcome to this pattern recognition video. So today I have 5 puzzles for intermediate level players rated 1200 to 1700 today. The future videos I'll bump it up by 50 points. So 1750 and then 1800 in the next 2 intermediate videos. Now, if these are too hard or too easy for you, I'll also have beginner puzzles, which I did yesterday. Tomorrow I'll have advanced, and then the following day expert puzzles. And in the future I'll go even harder up to master level puzzles. But feel free to leave comments and let me know if if these puzzles are too easy, too hard, or whatever you think. I'm always interested to hear what viewers and subscribers have to say. And if you have any ideas for improvement, let me know too. So, if we're beginning here, we want to look at material count. That's one good way to start. So we have 6 pawns. Our opponent has 6 pawns. We each have 3 minor pieces. So bishops, knights. So everything is even at this point. We do have a bishop pair. So if we look what our opponent just did, they pushed a pawn forward. They're attacking our knight. So that could be a problem. But when you're trying to solve puzzles, and once again, I've mentioned this in the past, if you're not familiar with pattern recognition, you pick a set of puzzles. This is only 5, but you can do more. You solve a series of puzzles or a group of puzzles, not just once and forget them. You do them multiple times. That way you start remembering the patterns that you see. So here, you want to look at checks, captures, and threats in that order. Checks first because they're most forcing. So if we look at the only check we have is that, capturing here, forking the king and the queen, but the queen could just capture our bishop there. But maybe that's a hint in this puzzle. So if we don't have any good checks, we have to start looking at captures. And often you want to look at unprotected pieces. And right now, it looks like everything's protected pretty good. So now threats. Well, before I move on to threats, also we want to look at captures, pieces that are protected. So, we have this battery lined up on the queen here, but the queen is defended. So maybe that's another hint. If we capture this knight, pause the video if you want to think more, without me giving away clues or answers. All right, so if we capture this knight and they recapture, we could grab the queen here with our rook. Then if they take, then our bishop could capture the pawn, forking the king and the rook, and we could grab that. And we'd have to count up the material. If we give away, let's see, a rook and a queen, that's 14 points of material. And then if they take our knight in the future, that's 17 points of material. And what are we gaining? The knight, so 3, the queen, so that's 12. The pawn here, 13. And the other rook will be under attack, and that could give us time to allow our knight to run. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do this. Capture, take the queen. Now we can fork, and the king is in check and would have to move, giving us time to take this rook attacking the other rook. Now, if the rook moves here to attack us, well, then we could take the knight here, maybe. So that's a possibility. All right. Anyway, let's move on to the next problem. So we can get 5 in today. All right. The rook just captured what? A pawn here. Now we have 2 pawns versus our opponent's 4 pawns. But you know, an obvious move might be to just capture this pawn. But maybe we have a mate threat. So, you know, if we look at checks first, we have a check here on the back rank. The king would be able to step forward. Now, if we try to go here, the rook could move over and put us in check. So maybe we go here with a threat of checkmate on the back rank. Now, if the opponent tries to push this pawn to, to get an escape route, well, then we can just move our king over and we still have that back rank mate threat. So we don't want to go there first. We want to bring the king up, and the pawn pushes forward to make a little escape hatch. So now we cover that, deliver a check, and mate on the back rank. So that was a nice little pattern there. All right, let's move on. Problem number 3 here. Okay. An endgame puzzle here. We're ahead 2 pawns to 1. Now, rook pawns here on the A file are very drawish. So if we try to take this pawn and the opponent captures our C pawn, it would most likely end up being a draw. So I think we need to save that pawn. But does it matter where we go? I don't think we want to go here because our opponent could go there, preventing us from protecting the pawn. So we probably have to go here. The opponent could attack our pawn immediately. Then we go here. The opponent would probably move in front of the pawn. And at that point, we could move here, forcing the opponent to step back. And generally, you want to move back in front of the pawn. Now we could move up here and have time to grab this other pawn and then move back and protect our pawn. So I know that was a lot. See if you can figure that out in your head. If you're ready, here we go. Pause if you need more time to think. So we're going to move up. We're going to protect our pawn. Now we want to grab the opposition, forcing our opponent to move back, because our opponent, if they move straight back, which is generally what you want to do in an endgame with a passed pawn like this, we could go here, and then they would step in front of our king. That would give us time to pick off the other pawn and then move back over and protect our pawn. All right, on to problem number 4 here. Let's see. We just had a bishop under attack. It dropped back here. So what do we do now? All right, well, take a look at this. If we count up material, we have 6 pawns versus 5. And we have an extra, oh, I guess we don't. We have a knight for a rook. So 3 pawns versus 5. We have a knight and a pawn for their rook. So do we have any checks? If we look at checks, captures, and threats in that order, if we go there, the king will just capture our queen. If we move here, the bishop could capture. And then if we recapture, then what? Do we even have any kind of follow-up attack? So the checks don't look that great. Captures, do they have anything unprotected? No, so we need threats. We could move our knight here, threatening a mate there. And is there any way for them to stop that? None that I see. So I think that would win. They don't have any counter checks. All right, here we go. And checkmate on the back rank there. All right, nice little pattern there. On to problem number 5. Okay, the final problem. We just had a capture here by this rook. Our queen is under attack. We could take, but then there would be a little trap there. If we take that rook, and they capture our rook with a discovered check, our queen would also be under attack and it would fall next. So, what can we do? All right. If we count up material, we have 4 pawns. Our opponent has 5. So we're down by a pawn. The pieces are even. What checks do we have? All right. We do have a forcing move here. And, we don't want to go here, of course, and check because their queen could just capture ours, and that would be terrible. So what about the rook check? Once we deliver check there, the king cannot move forward because our queen will be preventing the opponent's king from running to h2. So once we deliver this check, there is a block possible. Okay. Well, I'll come back to that. First, I want to look at check. If the king moves here to attack the rook, well, then we could capture here with check. If the king takes, then we would grab their other rook. But more likely, if we deliver a check, they're probably going to block. If they do that, so check, block with the rook. We could maybe capture. pulling the king into the center, or the queen would capture. But then we could swing our other rook over with an attack. All right, do we have anything else? So check. Rook blocks. One problem, though, is a possible... Okay, so never mind. That's not even an attack, bringing the queen down there. So, check. Rook will most likely block. Then what? We could take, pulling king or queen to the F file. Then we could attack. And we'll also have an attack here as well. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. All right, so now, do we go ahead and take there? Is there anything better? All right. So now, do we attack the queen by moving the rook here? Now, you try to do as much, calculate as much in your head, but sometimes you can't calculate everything. And then after you think it's a good move, you can calculate further after you make a few moves, but that's probably not the best thing to do. Because once you start a combination that you're not sure about, it could turn bad. So intuition does help a little bit. So the more you play, the more you'll have a feel for if something works or not. Oh, okay. Now we can capture with check, forking the king and the rook, and we can just grab that rook. So there we go. Check. Either the queen will block or the king will move, and then we can just pick off the rook. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed these 5 intermediate puzzles. Feel free to leave comments, like and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you for watching, and have a super chess day.